Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you. Let's talk, everybody. Let's really, really, really talk about where we are in the United States today. The Southern Poverty Law Center has said that hate groups have declined over the past year. And the question has been, well, did that really happen? I mean, is that your lived experience? And is that a good sign? I want you to let me know what your thoughts are. Please let me know. Let me know. And meet me on Blue Sky. SantitaJackson.bsky, SantitaJackson.bsky.social. I'm on YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Thumbs up, everybody. And go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That's the only place where I can get friends. The only place where I can get friends. And then I'm on X at Santita J. At Santita J. What are your thoughts, everybody? This Southern Poverty Law Center, of course, they do such magnificent work. They released their annual Year in Hate and Extremism report. And some people are saying that, this could be good news. Other people are saying, well, no, not necessarily. According to the AP, the Associated Press, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, found slightly fewer hate groups in 2024 than in previous years. Is that your lived experience, Bernadette? What do you think? What do you think? I mean, I'm wondering because Black women lost more jobs in April than any other demographic group. More people have been killed by the police since 2022. I mean, the numbers just continue to tick up year after year after year. DEI has been ended. And I would have to say, illegally in the military, because in the Supreme Court decision that gutted affirmative action in education and in the private and public school system, university system, well, guess what they did? They said the exception is the military. It's the military. The military, we can have affirmative action. We can have essentially DEI, but no place else. So, what do you think of that? Attorney Mark Fancher, you help me to understand what we are looking at. Because it just seems awfully interesting to me. Awfully interesting that they're seeing a decline, at least in name, of hate groups. But I don't know if that's the lived experience.
Well, I think an interesting place to start is with the Supreme Court decision that carved out that exception for the military with respect to affirmative action. It was a very small, discrete part of the opinion that most people overlooked at the time. I remember reading it, and it really just sort of sent all kinds of flags up for me. Not because it surprised me, but because it just yet again reaffirmed what I see all of the time with respect to how the US government functions. The US government functions essentially as the machinery for the billionaire class and for the multinational corporations. They're the ones that do the dirty work that make it possible for those who have billions and billions and trillions of dollars to make even more money. And the military is an important component of that. When these large corporations want to go into the global south, into the southern hemisphere, into regions that are populated by people who are brown skinned, black skinned, it's important for the military to be able to function in those areas in a way that's not going to necessarily alienate people that they want to try and build collaborative relationships with. And the purpose of their collaboration is to ensure that there is continuing access to the raw materials of the global south, continuing access to the militaries of the countries that they're operating in so that they can have them do their dirty work, carry out missions for the US and for its corporations. And it's hard to do that when the only people in the military are these buzz cut white guys
Mm.
These guys that look like John Wayne wannabes, these guys who are as just white as they can be, going into these regions that are populated by brown and black people. And so the court was performing its role by making sure that the military would always be able to do what it needed to do with respect to race to pick the right men and women for the job. So if you're going into Africa, if you're going into Central and South America, you don't want to send people in command who are white. You want to be able to elevate people who are brown and black skinned, who look just like the people in the region that you're going into, to make sure that it looks friendly, it looks non threatening, it looks like people from the US who are coming in who can relate to us and who we're willing to cooperate with. People that we can say, yes, we will talk to you about opening up our resources and making sure that you have access to them. Yes, we'll work with you in terms of running this military operation that's intended to make sure that you have continuing access to the wealth that's in our country or in a neighboring country. We'll do that. And so affirmative action was really important. The fact that the Trump administration has come in and has, as you noted, uh, basically operated in violation of that by eliminating DEI altogether from the military means that the Trump administration is not necessarily functioning in a way that pleases the oligarchy, that pleases the empire. They're really sort of a rogue administration, doing all kinds of things that are erratic and incomprehensible. And that's largely because they are performing a function that is consistent with the will and with the ideas and the objectives of white nationalist hate groups. That's where they get their agenda. That's the agenda that they're following and pursuing, and they're doing it very well. And to the extent that they're following that agenda, as opposed to the agenda of an empire that sees the value in diversity, that sees the value for all the wrong reasons, but sees the value in affirmative action and things like that in select situations and for particular reasons, then there's less need for these white nationalist hate groups because they have won the war, they have won the battle. They, for so long, had been trying to move the society to the point where people were no longer ashamed of saying white and proud, who were no longer afraid to speak publicly about the need to make sure that white people have opportunities and that there's a need to exclude these people who threaten those opportunities. That's all become very mainstream now because of the Trump administration. And it's made many of these advocacy groups somewhat obsolete. And I would venture to say that they're probably quite pleased about that.
Do you think that the actual number of hate groups has declined because these hate groups that are anti-black, anti-brown, anti-Asian, anti-LGBTQ plus, etc., do you think that they feel that they got a win in November of 2024?
Oh, absolutely. And I would think that they probably the number I don't have any way of knowing for sure.
Hmm.
Southern Poverty Law Center has done the research, but I would not be surprised if the number of groups went down because young men and women who would be attracted to those kinds of groups were looking for an opportunity to go into a group that was very militant in a white nationalist sense and might even be quasi military in its orientation. Uh, why bother with that when now you can go into the US military and pursue your white nationalist objectives, fully armed and fully endorsed by the state? Why do that when you can go into police departments and you can function with impunity when you're acting out your white nationalist objectives and aims? Uh, I mean, and by eliminating some of the consent decrees and other things that had been intended to limit or to monitor police brutality and excessive force and those kinds of things, the Trump administration has once again cleared the way for those who are members of law enforcement to engage in abusive practices that target communities of color. So you don't need those groups anymore. Now you can function within government sanctioned and government established agencies and formations and carry out your agenda.
When you look at just where we are right now, my concern would be for young people because I'm what do you are they have they been caught by surprise by the climate in which we find ourselves?
I think to some extent, but I think that that has been really one of the great blessings of the Trump administration is the transparency of white supremacy in the United States. What we're experiencing has always been there. There has been absolutely no change in terms of the sentiments of people in this country, the commitment to white supremacy, the pursuit of it in very vigorous ways. That's always been there. The only thing that's changed is that now it's just out in the open and people are more aware of it. And I think uh, to some extent, if not overwhelmingly, young people now are in a much better position than their predecessors. Those who are now entering into higher education, into the workforce, uh, their predecessors were lured into those places with messages that were blatant lies. Basically, messages that were, oh, we're all for diversity and inclusion. Come on in. We're a welcoming institution. Come on in and we'll make life wonderful for you. We're going to open up doors of opportunity for you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And all of people unwittingly believed it, walked into those spaces, whether it was predominantly white universities and colleges, or whether it was into government, or whether it was into corporate America, or whether it was into universities. They walked into those places thinking, oh, you know, these are going to be places that welcome me. And most of them were absolutely crushed and devastated by what they actually found. Students who were students of color at these universities were faced constant racial harassment and discrimination with respect to grading and other things, and they were abused in many ways. People in corporate America certainly found the glass ceiling and employment discrimination of all kinds. People in government ran into all kinds of problems and obstacles. So it's always been there. But I think that young people now who are entering into these spaces know that they're going into a war zone with their eyes wide open. And they know what it is that they're in for. And they hopefully will brace themselves for it. They'll prepare for it. And in that way, I think it's one of God's great blessings.
Yes, but how do you prepare these young people for this? I was looking at. I mean, there's just people have become so aggressive. Attorney Mark Fancher, they've become so aggressive, and people are unafraid now to say the quiet part out loud.
But that's the blessing of it all. They've always been that aggressive, but it's always been a passive aggression. It's always been a very subliminal aggression. I mean, they would smile in your face. They would tell you how much of a friend they are to you, and then when you turn your back, they slip a knife in it. So I think it's much better for someone to come at me with their fangs bared, so that I know
Mhm.
exactly who I'm dealing with, and I can deal with them appropriately. And I think that the way that people prepare for it is to understand that that's the type of world that we're living in, the type of society that we're living in, and they should prepare for that. They should certainly prepare themselves to be excellent in all that they do, and they should have at the ready those resources, those contacts, those people who they need to call upon in order to ensure that their excellence counts for something, that they're able to enforce what they're entitled to receive as a matter of right. And they need to not be afraid to quite openly organize with those who are similarly situated. There have been certainly people of color in the past who avoided the black table on college campuses because they were trying to, blend in or integrate or whatever it is. Well, go to that black table with no shame, no apologies, because you need to do that. You need to be with people who are facing the same predicament that you're facing. The more organized people are, the less vulnerable they are, and so that's a primary way of making sure that they're protected.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has a report, and they have this report that comes out every year, the Year in Hate and Extremism. They found that in 2024, the numbers of hate groups actually decreased. But the question is that a good thing? The report went on to attribute this to a lesser sense of urgency to organize because the beliefs um, of many white supremacists have infiltrated politics, education, and society in general. Some of the ways that they have done this are through pushing for bans on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, book bans, protests of drag story issue or hours, and the like. There were 533 active hate groups last year. These were groups that were anti-LGBTQ+, anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim. The number's been declining since they had the historically high number in 2018. But so that having been said, um, do you see the pendulum swinging? I mean, where do you see this going? Because we're now they have more than 200 cases in the courts. The Trump administration does. There are a lot of suits. These executive orders might be struck down in the courts. Doge is being struck down in the courts, but a lot of the damage has already been done. DEI has effectively been ended in the military, even though that's illegal, Attorney Fancher. It's illegal. It's interesting. I mean, what do you make of the carve out for the military? Oh, we don't want affirmative action, but any place but here. What's that about?
Well, no, yes, as we were discussing earlier, it was prior. It happened prior to the Trump administration, and
Hmm.
it was for imperial purposes. They needed people that looked like people that they were trying to dominate in the global South in
You
order
mean
to
like
carry out.
General Langley over in Africa?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the specific purpose for that carve out. So that when you have a very popular African leader like Ibrahim Traore, who needs to be put back in his place because he's being uppity, then you don't want a white general going over there doing that. The optics of that look horrible,
Mhm.
and so you get a Negro who, to all appearances, at least to a casual observer, is just like those people over there, to go out and do the dirty work. And so you need to have affirmative action so that you can do that. But Trump is not driven by the practical concerns of imperialism. Trump is driven by who knows what. It's his whims and his fancies, and his at the core of it, a vague, if not specific, uh, commitment to white nationalism. And so he acts on impulse, and so he and Pete Hegseth are wired in the same way in some respects, and so they don't care about the law. They care about white people, and they're going to do what they got to do in order to make that happen.
What is the path forward? I mean, the question is, should we be heartened by the fact that these numbers have gone down, or should we become even more vigilant because now uh, the hatred has been recodified, right? now the executive orders, not the laws, but the executive orders, are now on the side of these people who would push us back.
Yeah, see, I think that at most this is just a nudge or a wake up call for us to do what we should have been doing all along, which we
Mhm.
once upon a time did. That's to disregard all of this. People who are concerned about these things are people who have a vision of America as one of racial harmony and brotherhood and all of that kind of thing. Uh, that's an honorable and very nice vision to have. But the history of this country makes it an impossible one. White supremacy has been so much a part of the fabric of the development of America. It's at the heart of its very origins. That it is not something that is purged by legislation. It's not purged by court decisions. It's not even purged by the good faith efforts of people of goodwill to try and transform hearts and minds. It is a reality that's not going anywhere. And I think that what has been in times past, which are very much like these, I mean, it's not like we haven't been here before. I mean, there was that little thing called slavery where it was quite clear that white people didn't like black people. And even every period since then, really, up until the most recent decades, when you've had rhetoric which has been a little different, a little bit inconsistent with the white nationalist program that has been very much at the heart of this country's development. But the objective should have been, and it should remain, independent development, efforts that are focused on building communities of color without regard for the sentiments and the beliefs and the attitudes of those who mean us harm. There is nothing to be gained by trying to preach to or trying to persuade people who are committed to not listening. There is much more value in just becoming excellent, building our own institutions, doing those things which will allow us to be the best people in the best communities that we can be, with the hope, the outside hope that at some point people get it. I mean, that somehow their hearts are touched by God or something and they finally realize it. But I think it's trying to transform white nationalists is above our pay grade, and we're wasting our time and energy trying to do that.
What would you recommend that we do about male supremacy? They not only talked about white supremacy in this report, they talked about the rise in a male supremacist culture. You have the head of the Secretary of Defense who doesn't want women, you know, basically as serving, in to be troops. And you've got a double amputee in the U.S. Senate who led her platoon. What about this male supremacist culture? I mean, because all of this, it seems, goes hand in hand, Mark. All of these supremacies.
Yeah. Well, if white nationalism is above our pay grade to try and solve that,
Mhm.
then male supremacy is way above our pay grade because at the root of that is some personal deficiencies that these men have. And probably they would benefit from a type of professional counseling that most of us are not credentialed to provide. I mean, if your manhood is threatened by the excellence of women, if you are somehow threatened by the possibility of women rising to positions of authority and doing all of these kinds of things, if that threatens you, yeah, you got some issues that we can't deal with. And I think, yet again, it's just um, really a signal that we should focus on doing what we can do to build ourselves up. And
Mm.
certainly within communities of color, which have absorbed some of that kind of thing, we need to purge it because it's definitely not African. I mean, if you look at ancient African cultures and traditional African societies, you see that the brothers never had any problem with women leading. If you look in Ghana, Ya Santiwa was able to mobilize the sisters to fight the British when they insulted the Ashanti nation, fought valiantly. You look at Nzinga in Angola, who commanded huge battalions and brigades of male warriors in wars against the Portuguese. We can go on and on. I mean, even in this country, I mean, even though the civil rights movement has a reputation for male leadership, I mean, there were women who, really not just never got their due for the leadership that they provided. I mean, Ella Baker founded SNCC.
Mm-hmm.
Kwame Ture said that the brothers, if they were always on their toes, if they thought they were doing anything that would in any way displease Ella Baker, they made sure that they corrected it because they respected her so much.
Mm-hmm.
We could go on and on about the women. I mean, Diane Nash. I mean, my goodness. That's a bad sister. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they send a bus of freedom riders into the South, and white racists crowd it and burn it to a crisp, and they come back to Diane Nash, and they said, "What do we do now?" She says, "Get your butts back on that bus. We're going right back down there." I mean,
Yeah.
I think our people we understood. The brothers have not necessarily been threatened in that way, and so that's a problem for another community. And to the extent it's found its way into our community, and it has,
It has.
don't misunderstand me that there is not to say that there's not male chauvinism in our communities. I'm just saying that historically and traditionally, that's not who we are. We picked that up from someplace else. We need to get rid of it.
Well, we do need to get rid of it because we're here. Let me switch tracks just a bit. I was interviewing in the yesterday's show um, some persons who are engaging in a 40-day fast to appeal for a ceasefire in Gaza. And of course, it takes on enhanced significance in the wake of the killings of um, these two young people who worked at the Israeli embassy. They were at an event at the Jewish Museum, and they were killed walking away by a young man who's from Chicago. And it's very interesting, when you read his writings, he did not mention Jewish people, but he sure did target them. And he started shouting "Free Palestine," which now people are conflating "Free Palestine" with a salute to Hitler, um, which it is not. I mean, what do you make of where we are right now? More than 180,000 have been displaced in the last 10 days, Palestinians.
Yeah, it's not popular to in political discussions talk about the spiritual dimension of what we're experiencing, but I just got to call it like it is. What
Mhm.
the Jewish government, I mean, the Jewish, sorry, what the Israeli government is doing right now is not Jewish. That's satanic. And they have, unfortunately, in the name of a very sacred and holy faith, Judaism, committed satanic acts, and they're
Mhm.
continuing to engage in them. And the more of that kind of thing that goes on, the more it metastasizes, the more it takes root, the more it manifests in wild and unpredictable ways, which are even more and more, uh, disturbing and devastating.
Well,
And
where do you see this going? I mean, because it's very clear that this is deeper than Netanyahu. Many of us. I mean, he's become uh, certainly an object of discomfort and displeasure in many circles. But the fact is, the majority of the Israeli people support what's happening in Gaza. Not all, but the majority. How do we turn the corner?
Um,
Or is it Americans' corner to turn?
well, yeah, the U.S. is as complicit and as culpable uh, as the Israeli government. I don't make any distinction there. They're all
Mhm.
part of the same empire, and in fact, Israel is something of a junior partner in this.
Mhm.
Uh, they,
Why do
they're
you
the
say
cre- they're
that?
the they're the creation of the empire,
Mhm.
in 1948 for strategic purposes, for geopolitical purposes. It was necessary to have this country that had never existed before established in that region in order to facilitate the domination of the planet by Western imperialism. And so anything bad that the Israeli government does, it's immediately attributed, in my mind, to the empire, those who created Israel in the first place, and who have sustained it, and who continue to sustain it financially, diplomatically, politically, and otherwise, and who have not raised one finger in order to stop this type of carnage, this type of destruction on a mass scale that we continue to see. It is one of the worst of human tragedies in the history of humanity. And I think for us to try and call it anything other than it is for us to become complicit in it. For those who want to say that those who attack Israel are anti Semitic, are doing the work of Satan. I'll just put it right out there. Because people who are really committed to the Jewish faith would never stand for this type of genocidal conduct. Never. And so to try and conflate that, to try and to explain or rationalize this type of violence on the basis of religion is just one of the worst things that a person can do.
But it seems to me, I'm wondering, where are we with this really? I mean, you see France and you see England beginning to push back, right? Because I'm wondering if, I'm not asking for people to have a change of heart, right? What I am asking though is for people to look at this differently, right? Or to do something different. And we see we've got John Wayne uh, here, Fry. I want to bring him up before you go. Uh, Attorney Mark Fancher got him with his Bernie Sanders shirt on. I think I see where you are politically. It's so good to see you in your handsomeness. And he is a political activist here in Chicago. But what is fascinating about this gentleman also is that you are you live in the same neighborhood as Elias Rodriguez. He's the young man who confessed to shooting these two uh, young Israeli Americans who were coming out of this event at the Jewish Museum, really looking at Gaza. And I was struck by what you have been saying, uh, Mr. Fry, John Wayne Fry, aptly named. I love it. And what you talked about, and I know that you've taken some heat for even bringing this up. Uh, Wait, I mean, before I can even get into what you said, because you have not been celebrating the deaths of these young people at all. But from what I can understand, the alder, the alder person, the person who represents this ward where Mr. Rodriguez lived in the city council, uh, this person has been threatened. Um, you were on public radio here, And fortunately, you're not on social media, but you have stirred up quite the fuss. Um, Tell me, what is happening? What is going on?
Well, first of all, um, he was my next door neighbor.
Oh,
His
boy.
front door was 5 feet from my front door. My niece knew Sarah Milgram. She
Mhm.
worked with Sarah Milgram out in Prairie Village, Kansas.
The young girl, the young lady who was killed.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, it's really impacted me. It's really impacted me.
And you have been quite, you've been quite forthright. You said, why did he do this? You said he did it because he lost hope. The right wingers are saying that the protests are fomenting violence. They're even saying now, uh, Mr. Fry, that when you say free Palestine, that's equivalent to they're making that a Hitler salute.
I've heard that, and that shows the desperation of the people that are carrying out the war. I mean, you most people in Chicago don't want to hear about black women being killed on the South Side. They don't want to hear about students being groomed by principals, and they sure don't want to hear about Gaza. They don't want to hear the body count. They want to hear batting averages. They want to hear ERAs. But for those of us who are concerned, it it's a heavy weight. 50,000 dead in Gaza, and then the day by day drip. A new missile strike, 20 dead, 30 dead, 100 dead. And if you protest the genocide, you're arrested. If you're a student, you get expelled. If you're a foreign student, they'll throw you out of the country. So I can see how it could weigh heavy on him. It weighs heavy on me. I mean, we invited an indicted war criminal into our country as a guest to Congress and to the White House. And if a person doesn't have hope, they can turn to violence. And I think he got the math wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that somehow shooting two people would save 2 million Palestinians. 2 million. Now, the world doesn't work that way,
Mm-hmm.
but I can see how a sensitive person, could be driven to that.
He's your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
What is he like?
This is Chicago, and he was, that Chicago neighbor that you would see once or twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
In the hallway, in the stairwell, or vestibule, checking the mail. You'd say hi. I don't think that he was anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
Think this through. If it were an anti-Semitic attack, he would not have flown to Washington, D.C. He would have shot a Jewish neighbor. He would have shot me for wearing a Bernie sign. So I don't think it was that. I think that he was just pushed over the edge by genocide.
Do you think that, because you can't unsee these pictures, right? Attorney Fancher and I were talking about this, and I just have a few minutes with you. But you can't unring those bells, John Wayne Fry. I just saw another photo that I just can't take it out of my mind. A young girl, and you see her in profile, and there's a huge conflagration behind her. And they described the photo. They said that her family is being burned up, and I wonder if this child survived it. I can't unsee that. Do you think that Americans are being that profoundly impacted by all of this now?
We have to talk to our neighbors. Just posting something on the internet or waving a sign is not going to get the job done. You're going to have to talk to your neighbor. When you go to your house of worship, you've got to talk to the person next to you. You've got to keep hope. You have to have faith in the American people to stop this genocide. During the Nazi Holocaust, there wasn't much we could do. But for this genocide, we are in control. Our tax dollars are paying for this genocide. Our weapons are doing the killing. And it's the American people that are going to stop this genocide. I still have hope.
You really think the American people have the power to stop this genocide?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
I'm old enough to remember the Vietnam War. And it wasn't the weathermen who turned to violence that ended that war. They just blew themselves up. It was the mobilization committee to end the war. And the anti-war movement radicalized America. And it forced the government to end the war because they didn't want the radicalization to go any further. We need to build an anti-genocide movement to the point where the government's going to stop it because they're going to be afraid that we're going to go beyond this and say, okay, stop building those bombs. Stop building those missiles. Stop building those planes. Then they'll bring it into genocide because they don't want to stop the war industry. They don't want to stop the war economy.
Do you really, when you saw, because you saw the end of the Vietnam War, what were the factors that drove that? You said it was people, because at one point it was a war that was, I mean, it wasn't unpopular. Muhammad Ali lost they would say, one could argue the prime of his fighting career over that. He sacrificed that.
Absolutely.
And people forget just how unpopular he became for having taken that stance. He's popular now. Dr. King, when he finished his anti-war speech at the Riverside Church, April 4th, 1967, he was killed a year to the day to the minute that he stepped in that pulpit, everybody. A year to the day to the minute. Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker walked up to him and said, "Martin, you have signed your death warrants. You know this." He said, "I do know. I know." So taking a stand against the Vietnam War in real time was a very unpopular thing to do. And quite frankly, we can see the resistance to taking a stand to support the Palestinians without, and no one is trying to harm Israel. And my father said down through the years, Israeli security and Palestinian justice are married to each other. You can't have one without the other. But my goodness, what is going on? I mean, what else can we do? Where do you see another shift taking place? Will it be a generational one, as Jonathan Greenblatt said in that leaked leadership meeting when he said, at the really maybe a month or so in, he was having a meeting with other Jewish leadership, and he said, "Look, you all don't understand. This is not a right-wing, left-wing fight. This is a generational fight. We have lost the kids."
Absolutely. This genocide is tearing Jewish families apart. You know, grandma and the grandparents are planting "We support Israel" signs in their yard, and the grandkids are out in the street wearing keffiyehs and chanting from the river to the sea. Yeah, you're right. It is generational, but then there are some old timers like me that we like with
You're
you.
wearing a Bernie shirt, so come on, I kind of know where you are. I mean, but this has been a huge shift for people to take and to make. And so I just, just given, I think when I heard about this, it was horrifying. And then when I heard this young man was from Chicago, I said, oh boy, this has penetrated deeply into the American culture. This is big.
Yes, and it's affected me deeply. Um, I'm shy. I'm not gregarious. And so I don't stop strangers on the street to talk about the genocide. But now people are recognizing me, and my neighbors are coming up to me and saying, are you that guy? And now I'm having conversations with my neighbors.
Mhm. Do you think that's a good thing? I mean,
Absolutely.
what are
Absolutely.
they saying? And what are your neighbors saying about this?
Well, they're shocked at the shooting, absolutely.
Mhm.
But most of my neighbors are against the genocide. You know,
Mhm. Wow.
I mean, you have to have some pretty extreme politics to support genocide.
Well, the fact that one can say, call it a genocide now, that's huge. That's huge. Where do we go from here? Um, more than 600 people now have stated that they're on a 40-day fast to push for a ceasefire. I just had them on my last show. Mike Ferner from Veterans for Peace and Phil Tottenham. They're both veterans, and Phil talked about his journey from being gung ho about war to being a pacifist, basically. And Kathy Kelly from World Beyond War. Before you go, what do you want us to know? I mean, is there something that is for people who believe that these young people, these students need to be exported or deported, pushed out of the United States, that people should be denied their degrees, that Mahmoud Khalil should be disappeared into Louisiana. Thank goodness we can find him. And he just saw his newborn child, was just able to hold this baby. Um, they're talking about sending people to Libya. There are Americans who are having a hard time getting back in the United States. Getting back in the United States. I mean, who's heard of such a thing? They're having a hard time getting back in the United States when they go away for a vacation.
I know
Say you.
the measures all these repressive measures are shocking Americans, and that's what I think is going to bring us together. It's like these people are crazy.
They are, but they're here. So what should we do? What do you in the next couple of minutes? What do you encourage us to do? Because a lot of people are doing a lot of things. This 40-day fast, that's a very real thing. They started off, I think, with 8 people. It grew to 600. Boom, and it's growing. Um, what's the next step in your way of thinking, John
Um,
Wayne Fry?
you have to talk to your neighbors. We have to build a movement as strong as the anti-Vietnam War movement. And I hate to say that it's going to take to the midterm elections,
Mm.
but we have to turn all these politicians out that have supported genocide. And we're going to replace them
Mhm.
with people that care about other human beings, not people that are controlled by money, people that are controlled by humanity.
Do you think that is that a partisan issue or is it transpartisan? Because many people are saying that what hemmed up Kamala Harris was what Joe Biden told her to do. Remember, he said, it is reported, no daylight kid. So people wanted her to
Joe,
convince.
Joe Biden lost the election
Mhm.
because He supported the people that were committing genocide. He thought he was going to lose a few votes in Michigan, but it was well beyond that. He not only lost votes, he lost the door knockers. He lost the ward workers that would knock on the doors and turn out the vote. That's why Kamala Harris lost the elections, because Joe Biden let the genocide go on.
That, because people are blaming her. And I said, wait a minute. He told her no daylight, kid. She thought when she called him that he was going to give her some encouragement about the debate. And she was like, wait a minute, no daylight, kid. That meant she had no space to move.
Well, don't forget LBJ and the burden carried by Hubert Humphrey. And Humphrey lost, and extreme right-wing Republican won.
Well,
and we drove him from office. We're going to drive Trump from office too.
And anyone who thinks like this, John Wayne Fry, I love the name. I love you. I hope that you are feeling well. I'm looking forward to speaking with you more extensively. We've got a lot of work to do. And I hope that you'll be at the Rainbow Push International Conference. It's June 12th, 13th, and 14th. It's in Chicago, down at 930 50th Street. Everybody should be there. We're going to have conversations just like this, because it's very important that, as John Wayne Fry said, we need to talk to each other. COVID really helped us to continue to isolate. That was the tragedy, probably the biggest tragedy of that moment, that we became afraid of each other, that we stopped talking to one another. And you said, I was reading what you said. You said, if I could have talked to him, he wouldn't have done this, and because, wow, bless his heart, but bless your heart. And thank you for standing 10 toes down and being willing to talk about this.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
I can't wait to have you back.
Okay.
On the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm wondering why I'm getting feedback here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring up, all right, everybody, unmute yourselves. All right.
Hey, Santita, if I have to run, it's only because I have to run.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. But I'm getting feedback from you.
Is that on my end?
Yes, on your end.
Okay. Oh, you know what? I think I have two open.
Let me start this again. Okay. I'm getting it from you, Livonia, because I had you up twice. So we're going to start this again. Come out, Livonia.
For me? You want me to go out and come back?
Yep, because I'm
go out and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will.
Okay. All right, everybody. It's been a day. Technical glitches galore. We've had to figure things out. Boy, I've had to figure out things on the fly. Thank you, girl. Snowman, how you doing? Oh, boy. Oh, bless your heart. How you doing, Snowman? Andre, Bernadette, sending you all so much love. I'm waiting for everybody to come up. And once we're done here, we're going to keep it going. That's right. And I'm going to wait for both of these persons to bring up their cameras. Hello?
Is that better?
No. I'm still getting feedback. I don't know why.
I don't either. I don't have anything else on. I only have one.
Hey. I'm hearing myself. You know what I'm going to do?
You know what I'm going to do?
I'm going to send you
I'm going to
and
send you and
I'm going to send the two of you
I'm going to send the two of
different links.
you.
Okay?
Different links.
Come out.
Okay?
I'm going to send you all a
Come
different
out.
link.
I'm going to send you all a different link.
Okay,
Okay?
I'm going out.
Representative
totally. I'm going
Reynolds?
out totally. Okay.
Representative
Okay?
Reynolds,
I'm sending you all a different
Okay.
link. All right.
I'm sending you all
AM
different
950
links.
Okay.
radio.
All right.
Absolutely.